Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hello there, my name is Ngachacha. I'm a father, husband, middle-aged gamer, and co-host of Carpool Gaming's The PlayStation Drive. And I'm a Xenobabe, which is a term for Carpool Gaming's Xenoblade Chronicles superfans. And today, I'm going to be talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. When thinking about the three games in the series, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is the one that I would recommend to people to give a try, even if you haven't played the first or second game, just because number one, it is a self-contained story, so you don't need to know the backstory in one or two to actually understand what's happening in the third game. But honestly, it's the most user-friendly and it's the most accessible one out of all of them. So it's really easy to jump into whether or not you're familiar with the mechanics of the game, or even if you're new to RPGs. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a really good starting point for that series. It really is. Yes, if you did play the first or second game, there are minor references in the third game that would probably make you geek out. But again, you don't need to know those things. You can still have a really fun time with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. When thinking about Xenoblade Chronicles 1, I do feel like it has a good story. The combat's really fun, but I don't recommend it to everyone just because, in my opinion, that combat system, it is harder to learn. It's a deep system, but even with talking to friends, watching YouTube strategy videos, it still took me a really long time just to really have a basic understanding, and it took me even longer just to feel like I'm actually proficient and I feel like I know what I'm doing. And besides that, the game still feels a bit dated, even the definitive version on the Switch. It's still obvious that the game is from the early 2000s. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I think has the best characters and cast and has the best story, it's still hard for me to recommend to everybody just because um, there's a few flaws in that game. And the big one that sticks out to me is the exploration system. There's nothing more frustrating when you're playing a video game, you know exactly where you want to go or where you need to go, but you don't know how. And Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is an example of that, where you know what you want to do next, but you don't know how to get there. And you have to pause the game, look up different YouTube walkthroughs and strategies just to figure out like how to get there. It really pulls you out of the immersive experience and kind of ruins the flow of the game. So because of those things, it does make it hard for me to recommend to everybody. But when I think about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it's not perfect, but honestly, it's a really great game, and there's very minor issues if there are any. And again, there's very far few of them. It's the whole package. It's obvious that the developers, they took what worked in the first two games and they kind of left behind what didn't, and they just made the new game just easier for everybody to learn. I'm not saying the game is easy, but it's they did it in a really good way where you can become good at that game and everybody can, even if you're new to the series. When thinking about the story for Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I don't want to go into spoilers. So generally speaking, it is about two nations at war, Kiev and Agnes, and both nations have people who have been preparing for battle to help their country win. But the little twist is that people only live for 10 years. Really dark and sad stuff, especially for a first party Nintendo game. But basically, the people have been designed and engineered for battle, and if they survive their 10 years, great, and they get a little homecoming ceremony. And the countries are so dedicated and so focused on winning the wars because their nations won't function unless they have the life force and life energy or souls or whatever you want to call it from their enemies, fallen soldiers. So basically, if you kill someone from the other side, it'll help your country. So again, pretty dark stuff for a Nintendo game. And what I've shared so far is really super surface level stuff. This game has a lot more, a lot of twists and turns, and a lot more to discuss. I'd say past the, near the halfway point, the story really kicks into high gear, and it'll be really hard to put the story down. So I won't say any more because, again, I think it's better that you experience the story firsthand. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it is a lengthy game, just like most JRPGs. So if you wanted to mainline it, I want to say 60 hours. But if you want that completionist status, 100%, easily, easily over 100 hours. And I'm discussing the length of the game because I want to put things into perspective because I want to say that the first 10, maybe even 15 hours of the game, it could be viewed as a tutorial. Not that you are going through tutorials of people explaining what to do for 10, 15 hours straight. You are playing the game, you are progressing, but you're being introduced to new and different mechanics for those 10, 15 hours. And when you think about the game, like I said, if you're going for everything, it's over 100 hours. 10 to 15 hours is not that long, but I want to emphasize that this was a great choice by the developers because by spreading out um, all the tutorials and lessons throughout the 10, 15 hours, it makes it more accessible for players, in my opinion, just because there are so many different systems and deep mechanics in the game. If they threw all of these things at you at once, like in the first 2 hours, like I know I'd be overwhelmed and I would be frustrated. Whereas, over 10, 15 hours, you learn the mechanic, you get opportunities to practice, and more importantly, you get an opportunity to get good, right? You get to feel like you've mastered the game, right? Like I mean, when I play a game, I don't want to be understanding some and then guessing how to do the rest of it. It's nice to know that I fully understand what I'm doing in this game and how to do it, so I feel like I'm in full control, right? Um, it's a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is an action RPG, so you'll have a party of six, and the characters will basically do auto attacks. So when you move your characters, even the one you're controlling, you just have to move it up close to an enemy, and they'll whack them automatically. And you just keep doing that over and over again. It builds up this meter, and then you can use specialized attacks, which they call arts, and different arts have different abilities and effects and purposes. And one of the best thing about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is that you actually get to swap and control any of the six members in your party at any point during combat. And there's different classes in the game, right? So there are some characters who are all about wrecking shop as attackers. Some classes are about healing, others are about being tanks and taking damage for you. And again, you can play however you want. If you want your party to be made of six healers, go ahead. I don't recommend it, but you can play that way if you want to. And it's fantastic that the game gives you so much variety, so much depth, so much choice that you get to pick how you want to play, and you can mix things up, right? You don't always have to use the same classes. You can mix things up for the different enemies you're going to be facing, and you can kind of get a sense why, right? Of why the tutorials kind of are spread out over 10, 15 hours because there is so much to learn. And there's this cool thing that you get to do when you keep doing attacks and build up your meters. You get to unleash like chain attacks where everybody in your party gets to do these really strong attacks in this super stylish way, kind of like the all-out attacks in Persona 5 Royal. Like it's just oozing with with style. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I can't gush about the fun, addictive combat system. It's really good. And the side quests in the game are fantastic. It's clear that they made an effort to give meaningful stories to these quests. You'll get to appreciate the supporting characters, and you'll even get to learn more about the main characters that are in your party, the relationships. And in addition to that, by doing some of the side quests, it means that some of these supporting characters they might join your party. Again, you can only pick six at a time, but I promise you, there are more than six characters to choose from. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, it's an incredibly fun game. It has such an addictive combat loop. The soundtrack slaps, the art style is beautiful, fantastic story, and just a great set of characters. Again, I know that there are dark moments in the game. There are. It's going to hit you in the feels, but there's a lot of lighthearted ones and comical moments in the game. At the beginning of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I found some characters to be so annoying with their repetitive catchphrases. But the more time you spend with them, the more you get to see their backstory, their motivations, their relationships, and how they're progressing and how they're growing as people. You're gonna fall in love with the characters, and you just you. I encourage you just to get lost in the story that the game has to offer. About friendships, relationships, family, love, loss, what you need to do, what you can do when things look bleak. Like there's just so many things that the game explores. It's just fantastic. Before I wrap things up, I do want to mention one thing that I didn't like about Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and it's the final boss. A minor spoiler and a warning, it's a slog. That final boss is not fun at all. So grind, get good, and get leveled up because it's not fun, and push yourself through that really annoying boss fight because it's worth it just to see how the story wraps up. And, hopefully after you've given Xenoblade Chronicles 3 a try, and if you really liked it just as much as I did, then go back and experience Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2 and see where it all started in terms of, development and in terms of the main series, in terms of combat and the world building. And each game has a unique twist to it. So they're definitely worth trying. But start off with Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That's the best one, I think, to start off with, just because everyone can dive into it. So I want to take this final moment to thank you for listening. As you can see, I am a very, very proud Xenobabe. And if you want to see and hear more from me, you can follow me at Ngachacha on Twitter and come check out Carpool Gaming's podcasts, including the PlayStation Drive. Thanks again, everyone, and happy gaming.
Do you find yourself playing older games and wishing that there were new discussions about those games? Enter Tales from the Backlog. Hi, I'm Dave Jackson, and on each episode, I'm joined by a guest to break down those games that may be stuck in your ever-expanding backlog. Each episode looks at one game in depth, focusing on mechanics, story, music, and other aspects with no spoilers until a clearly marked spoiler wall in the middle. If you've played the game, go ahead and climb that spoiler wall and enjoy in-depth story discussions, and if not, jump out when we warn you and maybe go play that game for yourself. We have over 100 episodes in the feed, everything from Disco Elysium to Tunic to discussion episodes about how to get into horror games, and if games actually need to be fun, or if they have more to offer. I guarantee that there's something in there for everybody. Once again, that's Tales from the Backlog, available wherever your podcasts are found.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.